everyone, thanks for joining us here today. Cakes, Cooking and More. I'm Marie Lockwood. Today's tutorial is types of icing for cookies. So this is a store-bought icing that's pre-made. This one is an instant icing. And you can see that the instants come out a little more even. They're a little easier to decorate with. This one's kind of impossible. So let's see what we need. Okay, so for this one, we have a few things here that you'll need. And it really depends on what you want to do. What we're going to do is show you a couple of choices for royal icing so that you can choose for yourself. Now, this is store-bought royal icing. I'm going to show you why I don't like store-bought royal icing. This comes out about the right consistency. However, it does not work like you hope it will. It has the right size tip, but you really don't get a lot of control. You can take it, and it takes a little while to get it to squeeze out because the store-bought is in this weird bag. Bags also pop sometimes, so you have to be wary of that because the air builds up in them and they just don't handle well. Okay, as you can see, it's starting to come out, but it comes out really thick, and what I'm wanting to do is outline my cookie. There we go. Now it's starting to work. Now you can see that my cookie is not great. It's you can't change the consistency when you buy it like this. So you really have a little trouble with trying to flood your cookie. Now flooding is just a term for covering the whole surface inside of your outline. As you can see, it stays really kind of stringy and you really can't do a lot with it. This is actually just a flooding tool that you can buy. You don't have to, you can use toothpicks. And it just kind of allows you to move your icing around. But as I said, you can see that the icing comes out really thick. It kind of stays in its line. It really doesn't want to move. You can't really do a whole lot on consistency. You can't get inside the bag, so you can't thin it out to do flooding. So this is the reason I don't like store-bought. Now, if you're doing lettering with this, it might work okay. It's a little thick for lettering, but you could probably pull it off for lettering. But you can see that no matter how hard I try, it's not getting a good coverage. It's not spreading well. So this is why I don't care for store-bought. It's also very uneven, and you really can't do much about it. And this is, you know, store-bought pre-made, of course, which you can buy the store-boughts, but you can not buy pre-made, and they come a little bit easier to work with. They're not quite as bad. But the store-bought pre-made is really quite difficult to do anything with. So let's set that one to the side. Okay, so now this one is your second choice. There are actually a couple of choices. Three real choices. You have the store-bought pre-made that we just tried. You have this one that is a store-bought that it just comes as a powder. You get 1 pound at a time. You can see it's just a powder form. It's not anything super fancy or anything like that. That one, you actually take it, and I just use a cup of water here and a tablespoon. You're going to put 5 tablespoons of water into this particular one. Now there are some different brands that make you know, a little bit differently, but this one takes 5 tablespoons. And then you're just going to take a spatula and mix that carefully. And you do have to start out with a spatula because the powder will, you know, fly up in your face. There's a lot of powdered sugar, so it's pretty awful about that. This one is not too bad. You can control the consistency a little better. You can dye this one. Like I said, the store-bought pre-made comes in those bags. You can't get into the bag. I suppose you could squeeze it all into a bowl and try to work with it, but that makes it a little bit harder than it really needs to be. You can see this starts to mix up really well. This one is really good if you don't have a lot of time or you really don't have a lot of cookies that you want to decorate. If you're not doing it, you know, pretty often, this is probably your best bet. It's pretty versatile. It works pretty well. Like I said, you can dye it, and you can control the consistency. Now, this is a regular consistency when it's done. You do have to thin it out if you want to do flooding, but that's really easy to do with this one. So like I said, if you're not doing a whole lot of cookies and you're not doing it often, this is a really great option. Now that you've got most of the powder out of there, and you're not going to get that giant cloud of powder to come flying up in your face, just kind of clean off your spatula a little bit. And then you just want to take your mixer and get all the lumps out. Now you can see that this consistency is pretty good. It does form little peaks. It's pretty thick. So this is actually workable. Much better than, like I said, what you get with the pre-made. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with this one today. And next time I'll show you how to make royal icing yourself if you're going to be doing more cookies. Now what I've got here is 3 bowls. Just need a little bit on that one. This one, I'm going to need a little bit more. And this one, I don't need a ton, but I need a little bit of it. You really have to decide what you're doing as to what colors you want. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to take a deep pink for this one. And these are gel paste colors. You do want to use gel paste, not regular liquid food color. Liquid food color will put too much water in there and you'll have a little bit harder time working with it, because you can't control the consistency as much if you're accidentally putting water in there that you don't need. This one is a deep purple, and this one is a little bit of black. Now for my white that I need, it's already really white, so I don't need to add any color to that. When you make it yourself, occasionally you do have to add a little bit of white because it comes out sort of with a little yellow tinge sometimes. So you have to really, you know, figure out what it is you need. And these are just the 4 colors that I need. So you're going to take a spatula on each one and get those well mixed. Add a little more food color if you need to. You can see that they work pretty well. You don't need a whole lot of color unless you want, you know, something really vibrant. I'm going for a little more of a, not super vibrant, but not really a pastel either. And you do want to make sure you get those well mixed. You don't want any white left in there. And as I said, they mix pretty well. So we will get all of these mixed and then we'll be back. Okay, now that we have our colors mixed, we have a nice pretty pink. a purple, a little bit of black, and some white. Now what we're going to do is get our consistency right. Now the black, I want to leave that pretty thick. I don't need that thinned out. The purple, it's just a teeny bit of water. And you want about a half a tablespoon this time. And just add a little bit of water at a time. Mix that until you have the consistencies you're wanting. Now keep in mind that if you're writing, you want it pretty thick. If you're flooding, you want it pretty thin. And if you're just doing decorating, somewhere in between is about what you want. So that little bit of water is just about what I want for my purple. And you do want to do your water after you've done your color, because the color does thin it just a bit. Depending on how much you have to use. It is a liquid. So I always use the water afterwards to get my consistencies right. Now on my pink, it's about the same as the purple, so it's about what I want. Okay, now we're going to get our white the right consistency. Now as you can see, it's very thick, and that is not what I want for my white. My white is my flooding color, so I need that pretty thin, not massively thin, but thin enough to spread easily. You saw when we tried the store-bought pre-made icing how thick it was and how it does not move around. So you're just going to mix that in really well. And I do a half a teaspoon at a time because it really doesn't take a lot of water to thin it out. So you don't need a whole lot. Alright, now you can see it's much thinner now. That's much closer to what we want for flooding. You want to be able to get it to spread easily. When it's pouring like this, it will spread much easier. Alright, now that we have our colors right and we have our consistencies like we want, now you want to put them into piping bags. Now piping bags are just the regular piping bags that you would normally use for decorating cakes, but you want really small tips because the cookies are small, so you have a lot smaller to work with. So we'll get those ready and then we'll be back. Okay, now that we have our icing in bags, what we have here is a regular square cookie. I don't have any holidays that I'm necessarily working towards today, so I'm just doing a regular one. Now the first thing we're going to do is take our white icing, and I keep a napkin here for wiping off my hands and things constantly. You'll need that. And I just go with the edge. You'll see that the white comes out really easy because we've got it at flooding consistency. Alright, now that I have a square, all you're really going to do is squeeze a little bit harder and kind of flood it and fill it all in. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and the reason is because this is thin enough, it will run around where we want it to a little easier. And you won't have as much trouble with working with this one. Okay, now that that's done, take your tool, and you can see that it just fills right in. It's not like the other one where it doesn't quite work with you. And try to keep your lines, you know, fairly even. And these spots just go in a circle and they'll fill right in. Now that you've got it filled in, you can go back and kind of work at your corners to get sharper edges if you want. If you're looking for a more square shape, whichever shape you're working for. You want to do that now because once this dries, it's not going to move. And this stuff does harden a little bit. Anyone who's ever worked with oil icing will tell you that once it's set, it's set. Okay, now that you have a good square, you can see it's all nice and done. Now you're just going to take it and kind of tap it and then move it to the side and start on your next one. Now the white you do need, because you flooded it, this is a much thinner consistency, so this has to sit for a little while to harden before we can do the next step. And again, just outline it and then start to fill it in. And you can see how much easier this one is to work with than the pre-made. And then just take your tool again, fix your shape. And since these are most likely for family, friends, you're not selling them, they don't have to be perfect. But you want to be able to say, you know what, I made that, it came out pretty good. It's always nice to have something that you're proud of yourself for being able to do, especially if you thought that you weren't capable of it. It always makes a big difference. Okay, now that it's filled in, we just tap it a few times and set it to the side. Okay, so we're going to finish these up and then we're going to let them dry and then we'll be back. Okay, so now that our white is done, it's just slightly got a crust on it, and that's what we're really looking for. So now we've got our black, and we're just going to do our lettering. And your lettering does not have to be perfect. Perfect lettering is almost impossible to get. You can buy some projectors that make it a little easier, but you don't have to. And like I said, your lettering does not have to be perfect. You do want to keep consistent pressure when squeezing so that your letters come out fairly even on the icing. It's pretty hard to do and it does take some practice, so be prepared for that. It will not be perfect your first time out. Okay, now you can take your tool and fix quite a bit of that if you don't like the way that it looks. It's really not necessary, but it's totally up to you. Okay, now we're going to take our next one. Again, you can take your tool and fix quite a bit of your mistakes that you make. If your letters aren't quite round enough, you can shove them around a little bit. You can still work with it as long as it's still wet. Once it's hardened, you're kind of stuck with what you got. So fix them as you go if you're wanting to fix them. Like I said, a lot of it just has to do with how much pressure you keep. And the more you do, the easier it gets. And just keep going till you're done. Okay, now that our lettering is done, you can design a little bit. And you will see the little peaks that form. There's not a whole lot that you can do about those while they're forming, but you can take your little tool and take out the peaks in a second. And you really just want to just drop a little dot. Now, after you have these little dots, just take your tool and kind of take off that dot. This is what the napkin is for. You're really just taking that peak off there. Okay, then you can take your next color, and you can do any designs that you want. The good thing about this is it's very versatile. You can pretty much do any design that you want with this stuff, as long as you can keep your hand steady enough to do it. That is the catch. Okay, so once you have that done, you've got your design, you're pretty happy with that. And I do suggest that unless you've got a really steady hand, skip the lettering, because my cookies always look fine as long as I don't put words on them. It's when I put words that they go a little sideways. Alright, so after that, you can, if you choose, pick whichever color you want and pipe you a nice border. Do that one in purple. Okay, so these are our finished cookies. As you can see, the store-bought icing looks very lumpy. It never makes a pretty cookie. But you can see with our instant, it comes out pretty well. So I want to thank you for joining us here today, Cakes, Cooking, and More. I'm Marie Lockwood. Have a great day.